First move to an invocation. Mr. Mansfield, would you like to give an
Yeah,
invocation?
I'd love to. Dear Jesus, we just thank you, Father, for the ability to come together and do business and discuss things, Lord. And thank you for your grace. Thank you for each other, giving each other grace, Lord Jesus, to disagree but not be disagreeable. And Lord, I just pray for your wisdom as we deal with county finances and how every single penny can negatively or positively affect the citizens that we're called to represent, God. So, Lord, just give us discernment, give us wisdom, help us separate the wheat from the chaff and the things that are necessary and the things that are not. And we just bless our time of deliberations in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. All righty. Can I entertain a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
If you vote affirmative, in the affirmative, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All righty. Agenda is approved. We move now to recognition of the public. I think we have a couple individuals who'd like to speak. Is there anybody here who'd like to speak to any agenda item?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Did you want to add the law director discussion onto your agenda?
Yes, actually, you're correct. Let's, can I get a motion to?
Move to amend.
Move to amend.
I'd like to add something too. I forgot.
Okay.
Apologies, Mr. Chairman. It was a estimate on the AED devices that I'd asked for several months.
Let's do one, and we can do both of them, so I don't think that we'll have any issue here. All right, well, so we're making a motion to,
For
amend to add both the law director and AED devices to this agenda.
Do you want to add them under your report? That's
Yeah, that's fine. We can add them as items D and E under my report. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any in the negative? Motion approved. Okay, now, apologies for that, folks. Now moving on to recognition of the public. Any individuals who want to speak on any agenda items? Going once, going twice. Okay. We'll make a motion then. We can get a motion to approve the minutes. This is, I'll do this the same way we did in legislative, with a motion to, well, was it a motion to approve under form?
With, approve for form alone.
Form alone. So need that
So moved. Second.
motion in the, votes in the affirmative, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative? Motion passes. Okay, similar, moving on to the committee chairman here. October meeting date, same issue previously, so I think the right call here is to do the exact same thing we did in legislative, which is to move this to the immediately following Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel. Any issues with that?
So it'll be Tuesday, is that the 11th? Is that the
11th.
date? Yes.
Yep.
So moved.
7 o'clock.
Second.
All approved, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative? Nope, okay. Motion passes. Okay, next item is to reconsider funding for the construction of a new health department building near the new Shacklawton Fire Department. I think there's likely to be some discussion on that, so I'll open the floor to discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, items B and C were things that I found or heard about from Shackle Island residents, my constituents, and representing Shackle Island really July and August, and nobody had any idea this was coming. It never went through any committee process. There was never discussion about this during the budget process. Basically, it was buried in our budget under ARPA funds. And I can't remember how it was captioned. It's just something that I missed reading through the budget. Otherwise, I'd have brought it up in June. And so I don't know why this didn't go through. I know I didn't go through general ops because general ops never met. But but as far as going through emergency services, general ops, I think there should have been at least something to the committee process of these items and the public understand what was coming, especially the public there in Shackle Island, who do not want a health department across from Beach High School, I can tell you that, as a sitting commissioner representing that district. Those are my two comments. The EMS building, I don't know why that's necessary as a separate building. I know I've talked to some people in Shackle Island. I think there should be a discussion of, can you build on the back of that building? Because originally the Shackle Island Volunteer Fire Department was built with an ambulance bay and a place for staff. I know it's my understanding, I think, that the ambulance bay is too narrow for our current sizes of our ambulances, so they have the ambulance in the main portion where the fire trucks are. But I guess it's just really talking about the construction of that. Is a brand new building necessary? Is that the best location right there? Or can you build off on the back of the actual building, which seemed to be discussing with some members of the fire department that could be very well be possible. So wanted to basically bring this back out since this was never ever discussed. Nobody knew about it. It was just kind of got discovered about a month or two ago.
Mr. Chairman, do you want me to tell everybody where we're at in the process right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna make one quick comment real quick, but I do, Mr. Long and I have had several discussions with me trying to basically get up to speed here, and I'm just gonna make a general comment about, kind of my thoughts here and a philosophy. We just had really good and thorough debate about a 13-page document that, probably needed, we moved to have 30 days and needed 60 days, and I've had 6 to review 105 pages of documents that allocate millions of dollars. So the idea here, and this is, I don't believe that anyone is evil anywhere, but the idea, at least in my mind, that I would like for us to consider is to just slow this process down a little bit across the board and review in some depth various options. And it may be that what we have laid out are in fact the best options, but just to try to slow this down a little bit. So I'm going to shut up because I don't need to hear me ramble on anymore. We don't have a lot of time. But
is there a motion? What are we discussing?
so we're discussing right now item B, reconsider funding, and then I just was making a general comment about kind of slowing this.
But
this
I mean,
process
is there a
down.
motion? Is
Not
we're
yet.
not supposed to discuss until there's a motion on the table, but I'm just making
Sorry,
sure.
I thought I was going to move to defer these or put them under old business was going to be my motion. So if I didn't say it at the beginning, my apologies. So that was my fault.
So is there, okay. No, that's
So
fine.
I would like to make a motion that we move B and C under old business and move it to October to give us some time to discuss that. So that, my
Second.
apologies.
Okay.
The only comment I want to say is we've actually got the projects moving and funds are being expended right now, so I want to make sure the committee knows what's going on.
Before, yeah, I would like to have, so we have the motion on the table. We do want some commentary on it, some discussion on it. So, Mr. Long, please go ahead.
The health department, there's $100,000 of ARPA funds that's been appropriated. We have a $98,000 PO with the architects right now, and they are, I believe at this point, and Ms. Norfleet's here, I believe the design is completed, or is it still in the process?
For the health department, it's a $93,875 PO, and it's a schematic design process, so it's just in the early.
Is it been completed, is it the one we got the bill for already, or is
We
it
have received a bill.
for 46?
46.
So we've actually got a bill for 46 for the schematic design. So your two options right now, so we are at schematic design, and it has not been sent out for bid, correct, as far as I can recall? So right now, stopping that one would be very easy. The only thing is if you, make sure the commissioners, if we completely stop it and decide not to move forward, a couple of things will happen on the 46. We'll need to move that over to the general fund and pay it because we can't claim ARPA if we don't have a actual asset. And then the other thing, there is actually a $2.6 million state grant that is more than likely going to go away also.
So, a quick question on that. In terms of timing, does any of this bad stuff happen in the next 30 days?
No, because we're not even expending, but since we've got the design done, we've been billed for it.
Okay.
There's an appropriation, we will need to pay that. So I want to make sure when you're stopping, that we need to go ahead and pay the architect. We don't need to withhold his bill. But as far as moving forward, unless Ms. Norfleet knows something I don't, then we could stop at this
As long
point.
as we would obligate by the deadline in 2024,
Right.
we've got time to review the project.
You've got December 31st, 2024 to obligate it. December 31st, 2026 to have the cash out the door.
So I
So
think-
right now, you're fine to stop. This is a good one to stop.
So let me make a suggestion here, and we need a motion on it to consider these.
It's 1930.
Well, we still haven't, did we vote?
So you need to, we need to,
Did we vote on the move it to?
we haven't, well, because you have.
There's a motion and a second.
I know, I don't
Jimmy,
remember
give
taking
the
a vote.
details
We
on
never,
the
vote.
it-
So we didn't
it's
vote.
the discussion
The
on,
discussion.
Jimmy,
But I'm
give me
just-
details on the second one because it's a little more.
Sure, but I'm just making clarification, we need to vote on the motion on the table first before we go into another motion, so.
Okay, then let's,
So you had the two motions separate, sorry. I thought they were.
yeah, well, there's both B and C are combined, that was my problem.
Oh, okay.
Do I need, I can
Yeah, that's what I'm
uncouple that.
suggesting, we
So-
uncouple it.
Well, so I guess my question is, like, why? I'll make a motion to, move B to old business and defer it to October. Would be my first motion, since that's the first item. Is that the one that is
Yes.
okay to?
Yes, I just want to make sure the committee understands that we do need to go ahead and pay the architect. So we do have his bill right now.
and, Chairman, I'd just like to comment in general about,
We need
Yeah,
a second.
amending
the
main
He's doing
motion.
We need a second on it.
Change.
He's doing.
Well, whoever said, I think Mr. Schmidt.
I would second that
Yeah.
to move it to October.
So the second's okay with the amended adjustment, or the adjusted amendment, then we were.
Yeah, you wanted me to split them, so I'm splitting the motion. I mean,
Just to
I'm-
be clear, you're moving B under old business, correct?
Right now,
Right.
yes, that's the
We're
only
about to
motion that's on the floor.
Okay.
Chairman, I would just like to bring up in general about if we reconsider things that have already begun, just to keep in mind that we need to make sure before we act that we know exactly how far we are, because there is, it's called detrimental reliance. So let's say we already hired a contractor and they hired a bunch of subs and they're out.
Yeah.
We would be liable for that if they relied on our appropriations and our contracting with them. I'm not saying for either of these, I don't know where we are in the process. I think that's something we should know if at any point we do want to reconsider reappropriating or taking away appropriations. We should make sure it wouldn't cost us more in
That's right.
liability than it would just to do the project.
Our max liability at this point on that one's 93,875. We've expended 46. So unless there's something else out there after design, say Reliance or something, they can argue or litigate. We're right now for the 46. I'm about 1,000 out on this one. That's what our investment is.
So that's for item B.
That's for item B. Yes.
46,000
Yes.
that we need to expend now, and a maximum risk of 90.
93,875 is what we're going to pay on contract for.
Okay.
If they've
And-
done more work or relied in some form or fashion.
And that is if we were to.
Completely stop
And
it.
this motion is only to,
This is pausing it, so
This
you're
is
not
pausing it.
really doing anything except
Correct.
giving
just want to be
yourself more
super
time
clear
to
about what we're
consider.
talking about doing here.
You're just giving yourself more time to consider
Yeah.
at this point.
So that's not my understanding of the motion. My understanding of the motion is that we're gonna wait until defer to October budget committee to talk about it, which doesn't pause it until we make that decision.
Technically, to stop it completely, you would have to vote to remove the appropriations. So the same thing as what Ben is saying, if you vote to remove the appropriations, two things you've got to be careful on. Has somebody acted on the appropriations? We have acted up to 93. There's been expended 46, so we know what your potential liability is. But at the same time, Ms. Norfleet's the one administering it, and right now, we haven't went to bid on it, so we're kind of for a 30-day stop, you're at a really good point to stop at this point.
So my motion was to defer this to October, old business, kind of putting that pause button, because these are items nobody knew even existed, B and C. Just nobody had any clue about them.
Yeah.
So let's figure out what's going on. And so that was, so we have a motion in a second.
Second. Any other discussion? All right. Vote in the affirmative, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative? Okay, motion passes. All right, now we're moving on to item C. So, open floor here for a motion, please.
I would like to move that we defer it till October as well, and moving into old business. Give a second to figure out what's going on.
I would second that. I think it's a good idea to slow roll this and give us some more time to look at this.
Let me give you where we're sitting at right now.
We need, discussion.
This one is a project completely funded by ARPA, $3.5 million. There's a $227,150 PO. We have not got a bill at this point. As far as I know, we are still in the design schematic, probably pretty close to the end at this
Had
point.
an invoice of $113,575.
Okay, so we have,
Already through the design development stage.
so that's that got it, okay, so we're
So-
about halfway through that.
So are we obligated to that 113?
Yes, he's already done the design and potentially some more on the PO. Your maximum liability would be the 227,150. We know at this point we've got at least a liability of 113. But all you're doing is pausing at that as if you only want to stop it indefinitely. We'd have to deal with it.
So, quick question. The main element of this, I think that's kind of at play is the property, the county property that is adjacent to the volunteer fire department. Is that correct? So there's a couple pieces to this. One is the funding that you just discussed. The other is full funding, which has been partly matched by
That's
the.
that's the health department.
That's the health department.
Yeah, the health
Okay, sorry.
department, I can, the health department has $100,000 COVID. The property the health department's going to be put on is the match for a state grant that could be upwards of $2.6 million.
Okay,
This
got it.
one is to be funded completely from ARPA funds,
Got it.
wholly,
So.
no additional grants.
So I think the motion is there any other discussion we need to have if the motion is just gonna move this to old business?
That's all we just did to tell you where we're at on the project.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Long? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any votes in the negative? The motion passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to the report of the county mayor.
You got D and D.
Oh, sorry, it's my first time. Please, be gentle. So item D is, I don't think we specified which would go which, but we'll move on to
Law director.
law director adding funds. Or, I don't know that we'd be adding funds, it would just be paying you in accordance with that position.
Well, what I was talking to Ben is when I was asked about it, two things. There's a law director line item, and I cannot pay him out of the law director line item unless he's interim appointed as law director. But if the committee here determined there was a reasonable amount for compensation, then you could transfer amounts from the line item for the law director over the line item he's currently paid out of. That would be within this committee's purview.
Can we do that? That would have to be, is there any time limit on that? Or can you do it month over month, or, you know?
You could do it at any point, but my only question is more of a legal question. We currently don't have a law director, so I'm assuming that the responsibility for determining the pay would go back to the county commission at this point
That
for
would.
all staffing, okay. That was my only question, make sure so if the county commission determined the salary, and if the budget committee budgets this month, then I think that whatever you determine, since there's no acting law director, probably needs to be seen as a form, even a transfer as a formal resolution to the full commission. Is my thought, because they're the ones determining the salary ultimately for the office.
So I'll make a motion to make him the interim law director with the appropriate already budgeted salary.
All in one motion.
Yeah.
We have a second?
I would amend that to, I mean, to be interim county attorney for this, as far as the title. We're going to have to be forced to do a title of the interim
That's
county
fair.
attorney.
I'm good with that on my motion.
But pay consonant to the duties of the office.
So the motion is to elevate the title to interim county attorney with pay consummate to that role.
Correct.
I want to make sure I understand, the definition of pay consummate to that role is the pay that has previously been paid to the law
It's
director.
currently being paid to the law director.
Okay.
Same as Ms.
At that
Dean.
rate. Correct. That's the motion. Is that correct?
Effective,
Would it go
on
back?
the resolution or effective, you gonna have effective date?
Effective September 1.
We would have to,
September 1, backdated
Backdate it.
September 1.
Second.
I think you had a
Second.
second. You're good with that?
Second, yeah. And
All right.
I think that would need to go to the full commission, even though it's just that would need to go to the full commission
That's fine.
as a resolution.
That's fine. So then this is to put forth a resolution to go to the full commission to elevate you to interim county attorney with pay currently being paid to the county finance director.
Law
director.
Or law director. Sorry, we've been talking about a lot of them lately. Did I say that right, minus that last little bit?
And yeah, just with the date of September 1.
Backdated September 1. Are you good with that? You had a second? Okay. Any other discussion? Okay. So moved, and We'll take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any votes in the negative? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, moving on now to Mr. Mansfield's suggested or amended agenda item, which was to add AEDs, I believe. So do we have a motion to?
So move, and I just wanted to basically move it to old business for next month and discuss it. I know we got a lot to talk tonight, but I just wanted to bring this up so we can submit this as far as part of the business. But this was something
A second.
something I'd requested back when Mo died, and something I'd worked on with Brent Dyer. And that an AED device very well could have saved his life. The sheriff's deputy was there in a matter of minutes. And so I know he did CPR on Mo for an extended period of time, 10 to 15 minutes, pretty aggressively. And so I know that this quote is, it's for 100 units. It's $1,500 for per. I don't know if it's 100 units is needed. I think we only have like 48 active sheriff cars. I just wanted to have this out there. And so since this never came before budget like I requested previously, so I wanted to make sure we got that on there and see what's possible to do that.
Would you like us to go ahead and, because there's not a lot of cost involved, to go ahead and bid the actual AEDs to see what they actually cost? 'Cause
Yeah, that'd be good.
It'll have to be a bidded item, so that way if you do determine this is something you want to do, you can move forward with.
And we can bid that with this being.
Well, we have a rule, we generally do not bid things without an appropriation, but with it being considered, you want to move on, then we could go ahead and bid it if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great, especially if we can get.
We just probably need to know the number of the AEDs and the specs that you want from Mr. Mansfield.
So we just tie it to the number of sheriff's vehicles we have?
Well, my thought was, I don't know I think they really said 100. I know volunteer fire departments as well. I don't know what they have. It could be something that could be distributed to them in the areas, especially on the northern end of
And we
town.
probably need to check and see, because they do have to be replaced every once in a while. We have them in this building and most other county buildings. We probably, in the process, should see if we have any that need to be replaced in the near term.
That'd be a good idea. It's the quote's for 100, and these are compatible with all of our EMS.
Because
and
we
our current.
Because we don't have exact number here.
We could just, if the law director or the law office could get us a number, we could go ahead and bid it. We could
Okay.
get a good estimate and, or we could even bid it a minimum of 60, a maximum of 80, something reasonable.
Okay.
We can bid a range. There's different ways. We just have to bid it before you actually can purchase.
Yeah.
All right.
Somebody usually will give you up to this many, it's this price.
Yeah, you can kind of stagger that up.
So
So
if you could,
we could do what, a minimum of
We can do that.
40, a maximum of 80. So we'll figure a good
We can-
range and find one.
We can do that regardless of the motion on the table though, right?
If you're deferring it to next month, we can go ahead and bid it.
Okay.
Because it's up for consideration at this point.
All right.
okay, that's fine. So,
Hey, Chairman.
I would like to ask, in reference to the AEDs, I am a medical person, that I noticed that in this building, in the meetings, there is not an AED. I haven't seen one, you may have one, but I would like to know if we can get an AED placed in this building, especially when we have meetings with all the public and.
rotunda? Yeah. It's in the rotunda.
There's a couple, yeah, I
It
think
is?
there's
Okay, I
3 or
didn't
4.
see it, I just wanted to make sure, because it is a big deal, and it's a big deal. So you might even consider having 2 of them, because.
I believe there's 3 or 4, there's one on each floor. And then,
Are
yeah.
they
So I don't think there's one in the
marked?
basement, so I think there's 3. What now?
I didn't see them, so are they marked? Really?
They're in boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody can probably find them for you. I don't
I
remember
just
myself.
wanted to make sure.
I believe we have 3. I don't believe there's one in the basement. I believe. Good. Greg,
All right. Oh, go ahead.
Just real quick, to go along with what Mr. Mansfield is saying, as you approach the completion of the new courthouse, then that's another place. Any county-owned property that has the ability to assemble 200 more people, most codes now recommend that the AED is there. We have them in a lot of our county buildings that are here. I think it's a great idea to put them in the sheriff's office vehicles, and then we can poll the volunteer fire departments and see if they have them and want them. The more that are out there, the better. So it's called early access defibrillation program, and that makes the survivability of sudden cardiac death so much better.
Judge Howard, sorry.
I would echo that sentiment. I think the courthouses, as we're moving towards a new courthouse, I think that's important. And frankly, I think the current courthouses, my office, for example, is located down the street from where the sheriff's department is, from down the street from where Gallup Police Department is. We don't have that down on Howard Island. So I think that having those kind of items in any of the courthouses would be a worthwhile thing.
Just a question, what's the life on one of those things?
They typically have 10-year battery life. The 7 to 10, depending on the manufacturer. The only recurring cost that you have is the pads. The actual pads will expire when not used. We hope that happens.
That's 7 years or 5 to 7?
No, they expire, typically have about a 2 to 3 year shelf life.
Okay, so that was, okay. I thought 7 years for the AED was kind of like the minimum, like.
Yeah, but the good thing about it is that's currently something that's handled through the EMS office. We will go around annually, check them out. They have anybody that walks by them, you can tell if they're in service because the green light will be illuminated. That green light's not on and it's a red X, and the battery is shot and you notify us and we can get it.
So just to move back to the motion.
Well, my original thing was for 100 units, but I don't know if you want to go up to that just because if you're looking at other places, so I know you'd said between 40 to 80 or
Well,
60.
we can amend this.
The motion's to send it to our.
The motion-
Correct,
that's
well,
right.
well, he's talking about sending it out to bid already, so.
Well, we
that's-
can
that's-
wait till October if you, just to get it down the,
Well,
I just want to make sure we're.
you can wait till you guys determine the number.
I don't want to do too much and I mean, what do we actually need and what can we do, afford to do? So it's like, let's ask some questions.
We can bid a range, or we can wait till next month and let you guys determine a range.
All right, that's fine. Well, the motion was to move to old business next month.
Who was the second on it? Mr. Becker?
Thank you, Commissioner Becker.
All right, we'll take a vote on this.
Mr. Chairman, just throw something else out there. I do believe that we can maybe get this funded through grants, which would offset some taxpayer dollars at the local level. So I think if we're given a little bit of time, we can try to see if we can get some grant money for that.
There's no, I'm
Pay
not
for
gonna
it.
say there's no emergency, obviously there's an
Yeah.
emergency, but I'm just.
Right,
not
I
trying to rush- I'm not trying to
understand. I'm
rush
just
this.
throwing that out there.
I think it's a good idea.
Could ARPA funds be potentially used for this?
The
Should be, yes.
10 million can definitely.
Okay.
We'll have to look at the other.
Well, how we provision it, we can discuss in later business. Again, the motion here, just because we're coming up on time, started a little bit late.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask?
Go ahead.
Of Chief Miller, how many do we have currently?
Countywide, I'd say, Commissioner, we're probably around 30 to 32. County what is, it's a little more robust that we have to carry on the ambulance because it does 12 lead EKGs and everything else, but it still is considered an AED. But then we have it on all the BLS ambulances, all of our command trucks, we have them, and then that's counting the ones that we have in our buildings, county buildings that we're aware of.
And they are in every ambulance?
Yes.
Are they in every county building? By the number I'm judging, no.
I don't think so. I know they are in most county buildings that have the ability to assemble a large number.
What are the age of these?
Some of them are reaching their end of life.
Thank you.
If it's fine with the committee, we'll just hold off on any bid process then.
All right. Motion remains on the table. Do we want to take a vote? Any more discussions on it? All right, let's take a vote on it. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative? All right, motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, can I add one thing? Since
Go ahead.
if you're going to go for bid, it will have to be a Zoll brand to remain compatible with the monitors and stuff that we have. That'll also save the county a considerable amount of money, because if you change brands, we pick them up, they got an AED, we got to change the pads to go to our monitor. You don't have to do that if the brands are synonymous.
And that's what this estimate is for, is the Zoll
Okay,
brand.
yeah.
So
Is this a
That's-
quality unit?
Yes, sir.
This was from Brent Dyer.
Got it. So, are you, just to clarify, was the motion specific to this brand?
It wasn't, but I'm just,
We'll leave it on. We've
yeah,
got
we're
the
good.
vote. We're good.
We're done. We've already voted on it.
Okay. Now I've got these two up and we're through the second block here and 8 minutes left. So go ahead and turn it over to the report of the county mayor.
I've got about a half-hour report.
No report.
Okay, check. That was fast. All righty. I don't think yours will go quite that quick.
I think I'm gonna try to speed it up by moving item B, C, and F to next month's under old business, that way we can deal with it there.
Motion.
This is my report, so we can just throw it.
Okay.
We don't have to do that.
Yeah.
It's good. I can have it next month. The transfer policy is in your packet on page 15, and that's just to make sure that two things. One, for the mechanism to get non-salary line items in, the county commission and the budget committee through policy several years ago authorized the finance director to move between non-salary line items. What that means, if it's in your budget, it's something they generally do, or a project that's been approved, then I'll do transfers. I've always asked the committee in the past to, for a better word, approve them even though they're not required, and they're under item C2. So when we get down to discuss that one, if the committee wishes for me to be more stringent or less on these transfers, that may be a discussion at that point, and I can explain those. Item number 2, discussion of the budget committee agenda. Currently, we allow departments to send us budget information to Wednesday at noon. By the time we ask additional questions and get straightened up, it's usually Thursday, very short period. Talking to our chairman, he would like to see a 7-day lead. For us to be able to do that, we need to really move it, not to the Thursday before the meeting, but the Thursday before that. That would allow us to get the information, get the questions answered, get it straight up, and generally send it that Friday or that Monday morning, which would give you a 7-day lead. If everybody's good with that, that would probably be something that would require or should require a vote, because I'll send out a email tomorrow saying it's the will of the committee. So, does anybody want to entertain that?
You want to continue your discussion?
Oh, we can group them. Okay.
Yeah, do that, and we'll come back to them.
That would be item E, which would, and then item G and H. The first one is the Highway Public Works cash flow analysis. It's on page 16 and 17. The first month we were a little below projections. The second month we're a little above. Nothing material to worry about at this point. It's just the cash flows. But the state wanted the cash flows presented to the county commission because the highway department did not have at least 1/12 of their annual operating budget projected to be in reserves. Item number 2 is just a memorandum telling the county commission that the financial statements will be available for June, July, and August, the night of the county commission meeting, because we've closed our books at this point. And then item E, G, and H actually needs a vote, because 2 of them's going to the commission, and one of them will be informing of a policy change.
Motion to group and approve E, G, and H.
Second.
Okay, so we have motion, we have second. Go ahead and take a vote. All in favor of grouping and approving E, G, and H, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative?
That's the end of my report.
Great. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to new business. So, budget amendments, and Mr. Long, we may ask you to do some discussion here.
Pages 19 through 43 is one that needs the approval of the county commission. I've went through them, and they make up a couple of items. Some of them are pass-throughs for grants, reserves for things such as preschool, IDEA, and various other reserves that they're budgeting. And then one of them is an operating transfer because they wanted part of the funds expended. They actually sent me the narrative and everything today because I requested it. Wanting funds transferred from federal projects to GP to be spent through GP based on the parameters of the program. Did not see anything that really is out of the ordinary for year-end rollovers for the school department.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. So this is for item A1, budget amendments, page 19 through 43. Any more discussion?
Is this anything we want to have the education committee look at, or?
Did it not go to the education committee first?
I don't
It
know.
usually does.
Didn't meet this month.
Oh,
It's a ton of money.
Yeah.
It's a ton of money. Usually one of two things happens, which has been historically, would go through education, or the education committee chairman would talk to the budget chairman and say, and since we've changed, that they didn't necessarily go through. These did not always go through education in the past, but it's generally passed through a reserve fund, so I don't.
I'll make a motion to send it to full committee. We can hear from the education chair on the full committee floor.
I'd second that.
Is anything gonna break if we
I don't know,
postpone
we
these
would have
off?
to call the schools to find it. And what's been done, could be a consideration, is passing it to the county commission subject to So you can't get this point, education. Education is
Not
not this
unless I
month.
did a special call for, before the commission meeting.
Okay.
It's just a
Yeah, I
lot
know
of
they were
non-specific
Yeah,
fund stuff
it
for a
is.
lot of money.
It's
I understood
for,
this.
I can
this had
go
already
through each
gone-
one if you want me to go through what my understanding of each one is.
Yeah.
I went through them today. Let's start on page 19. The first one is an IDAB grant, which, as far as I can run, it's got some other acronyms behind it. But in the past, that's been Education of the Handicap. And if you look on page number 21, it actually has a revenue, which is the 332 with an offsetting expense. So it's actually a pass-through grant or grant funds.
So this is a pass-through, it's revenue neutral.
Yes, it is. It's got
Let me
revenue.
ask this, are all of these revenue neutral?
There's some of them that has reserves, but it's reserves for things such as preschool, so it has to be used for preschool. It's for their programs.
Okay,
There's none coming out of their unassigned fund balance. I looked at that today.
okay, so I just want to repeat this back and make sure I'm clear. So all of these are either revenue neutral in that they are pass-through grants, or they are required to be used for the specific thing they're being appropriated for.
And then there's one in there, I think there maybe actually be two, where there was funds for where there was insurance recoveries this year or last year, and they're using that to repair buses. Those are in there too. But there are things such as that nature that makes,
Okay,
and then, I mean, I've got them each one marked off by the pages if we want to go through them quickly, or,
I wish they were grouped in a way that, like the pass-throughs we could all do at once, but I guess it's not grouped that way very easily.
see, like on page 22, it says damage done to Portland High School Liberty Mutual as part of settlement, and they have a recovery, insurance recovery, and then money they use to repair it.
All right,
And as far as an oversight, I didn't realize I hadn't been to Education Committee.
yeah, I thought they had been.
Then the next one is, it's the preschool year-end reserves are on page 24, and it's a reserve for the preschool, and then its funds being carried over. The next one is actually special education, and they are, special education reserves are rolling over the next year.
Yep.
Same thing as
Neutral.
IDA. There's one that had an operating transfer, and I actually got an explanation. They wanted those particular expense transferred and paid out of GP. They sent me the narrative. That's what's on page 28. It's an operating transfer, but it's to do with funds that originated under a CEI as focused. And I actually have the full narrative if anybody wants to see it. I called and requested that. Page 30, year-end 22 reserves, but it's from funds for a new school bus from an insurance recovery where the bus was destroyed for $114,000. Same thing on page 32, it's an insurance recovery.
Yeah, I've got a question there. Why are there two different prices on the buses? I mean,
There's probably a difference in the buses. They have the bus
that's what
714.
I figured we'd be getting the same kind of bus for the whole county.
That might be a school question. I just know it was funded by insurance recoveries. I'm not sure the price difference between, I know there's the small buses, but they're generally significantly different than those.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's not that much difference,
Right.
but they are different.
About $20,000.
And it might even come down to something like, there's actually just a very limited number of school buses that are built in a year. So it might be you were able to get some from one vendor, and that was the max amount you could get from that a
Well,
lot,
I mean,
and go to a
it's-
different one.
It may be in the,
114 to 134,000, that's,
I thought in the future maybe to request that the director of schools or his representative come to the committees. They did in past times, but they haven't for the last bit, but to come to explain some of the details of their operations, such as the buses. Which it makes
Yeah,
sense, it's an insurance recovery.
Yeah, this,
but
I
no.
mean, it's kind of a tough spot we're in, because,
I had a lot of questions on a lot of these lines here, but
Let me see if I can get a hold of anybody at the schools, or,
Well, we'll be here till 1 o'clock in the morning.
What's the motion on the table?
Well, the motion,
Is to send this to the school board?
No.
The motion sent it to full commission.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
From Monday night.
So they all have labels of year-end reserves, or like a year-end high school reserves carryover. That's what I looked at today. They all have a reserve or a revenue source and a
So-
program.
Can I make a recommendation for sake time?
Yeah.
So, with the motion on the floor, Commissioner Becker is sent to full commission. Obviously, it gives you 7 days to ask questions, and you can always defer if you, legally, you're able to if
Yeah.
you want to, but we need to take action.
Yeah,
on
we
it,
do.
So there was I don't know.
The motion, so who made the motion to?
I made the motion.
Commissioner Harrison.
Okay. So, given everything we just said, and we've had some discussion around it, but I agree, so, let's go ahead and take a vote. All those, in favor of sending this to full commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Any negative? All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, do you want us to request the director of schools
I
or
would,
somebody come
yes.
from now on to the budget committee?
Yes.
We'll send him an email then, and request that.
All
Have
right.
to remind me, Ms. Jessica.
And item number A2 was informational only, correct?
Yes, that's the ones that you just need to vote to send on for them to docket. It has to be docketed. So they send it through this committee to docket it on the
Got it.
floor.
All right, can I get a motion on that one, please?
Second.
All right, we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion approves unanimously. Okay, moving on to B, appropriations, B1, drug court.
Can you explain that one?
Yes,
During the
please.
budget process, the grants at times are still estimates. Now his actual amounts came in and it's less. So what we always ask is to have the revenue and expenditures decrease. That decreases the likelihood of somebody overspending their budget. So if we come back and remove the appropriation, it's a better internal control. So I'm requesting the commission decrease his revenue and expenditure to the actual grant.
Motion.
That makes sense, everybody? You have the motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion approved unanimously. Okay, B1, budget carryovers. This is where I think it gets a little hairier. So I think we need to have discussion. I think we need Mr. Long, can you go ahead and just give us an overview on these?
The overview, these are programs that's, and if you look at let's just look at page 63 is probably
Yep.
where we need to start. I'll wait everybody gets there. These are programs that's been started in the 21, 22, and even earlier fiscal years that's been carrying over. And if you look at the description, it'll give you a description like the first one is the original 2021 budget for disaster recovery, County Administration Building, IT upgrade. I'm looking at, and that was a question I had from the chairman, which one of these items could be postponed to next month quite readily. Talk to IT, they're short a director and another employee. They do need to get back down to a new disaster recovery, but we're nowhere in the process at this point of bidding those. So that 71,844 and that 225,328, which came from the COVID-19 funds, could be very readily moved into old business next month. Going down, and we talked to Ms. Norfleet about several of her projects, and at this point, we're getting ready to bid several, but none of them has been bid as far as the rest of these. Those are ones that we discussed that could potentially be moved into next month earlier.
Yep.
Like the jail elevator and the other projects. There was a discussion about the generator. I think it's going back for rebid. That was my understanding, because right now we think the 3 generators came in
Way high.
significantly more
Way high.
than they should be. So that one's one that could be pushed off. The next one is the archives roof. We haven't even started any real movement on that one yet. The third one was the carpet in the building, and that one's been running for quite a while. One of two things, we could carry that one over only, and or we could go ahead and bid it and to have it ready when it comes back next month. That's the carpet for this building, and some of it's been here since whenever the building's built,
1990.
1990. So the one that the newest of the group that I think is around 16 years old going forward. And then the last one is the ARPA funds for the Forward Sumner project and the Ashley's Place. Out of the groups,
Yeah, so and we'll need a motion on this. I think what you and I discussed, Mr. Long, was that the flooring in Ashley's Place could probably get, it's a little more time sensitive potentially than everything else. All the rest of it needs, nothing's gonna break if we take some more time to consider those.
And possibly the command vehicles.
Oh,
We
that's
have a
right.
building improvement for the EMS Station 13. That was completed, we carried it over a couple months ago, we found out it's completed. When projects are done, we usually de-appropriate them. We've ran into the issue right now, if we don't go ahead and order the command vehicles and potentially the window to order those is gonna close for another year. And also, we could put off ordering the equipment, the same concern, some of those, I think it was the hoist especially, or the.
So there's
couple things.
a lot of stuff here at discussion, and I know I want to get your couple notes here from the floor, but I would entertain a motion to move everything except for the flooring, contributions to Ashley's Place, and allocation of funding for command vehicles.
How about instead of de-appropriating building improvements for Station 13, we just transfer 33,954 from that project.
Right.
That would just be a transfer.
Transfer.
Move it over to vehicle and equipment.
So everything, but what I'm suggesting here, and I need a motion to do it, was that everything that I didn't just mention, we would move to old business. Because nothing, just to be clear, Mr. Long, nothing's gonna break if we take a little more time to assess some of these couple $1 million of.
None of the things that we've got at this
So
point.
you need a motion to move everything to old business except for Ashley's Place and building improvements to EMS 13. Is that what I just heard you say?
And to transfer 33,954 from building improvements to the command vehicles, the $80,000 for the carpet, and the $40,250 for Ashley's Place. So it'd be three items.
3 items.
Right now, we were talking about.
Where am I missing command vehicles on this?
It's not, if we look under building improvements, EM Station 13, we asked to de-appropriate that project, talking to the EMS director after the agenda was prepared. It's become apparent that if action's not taken on the command vehicles that have about 200,000 miles apiece, that if some action isn't taken this month, the window to purchase those is gonna close until next year.
So-
The window closes.
So you want the command, basically group and approve and move to old business for October, everything except for the command vehicle and Ashley's Place and
And the flooring.
in the flooring.
That's right.
So move.
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
I have a question about the IT disaster recovery. So, nowadays, especially, a lot of people are hacking and doing all that stuff. It's happens all the time, right? So we're just saying that we have a disaster recovery plan, but this is just to upgrade it?
We have disaster recovery, this is update the equipment and make changes. We've got one now, but it needs to be, because you gotta update your equipment and change. That's what this is for. The reason it hasn't been completed at this point, we've lost an IT director and they've had significant issues of keeping IT staff. There's a shortage. So talking to the IT staff, they're not ready to.
So is the argument that the money would just be sitting there anyway?
Until you dealt with it, next month or the next, it's just gonna be an.
So we would gain nothing by, is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of.
Pretty much, and then several of the other projects that Kim's got, we could, this Norfleet, we could actually, if necessary, go ahead and bid them, because we've not bid any of those yet, subject to it coming back or then cancel it. So there's nothing that's really gonna come with these, unless I'm not aware of something, this Norfleet, that's gonna come to screeching halt on any of our project.
Like we were discussing, the flooring,
Right.
it could affect the timeline, so it would be advantageous to go ahead and move forward with that, because we were trying to finish everything before the end of this year.
We wanted to do some of the installation on the carpet during the holidays while the building was
that
empty.
makes sense.
Because the building's closed for Thanksgiving in 7 days, and it makes it easier if the building's
Sure.
empty to get people in. That's the only reason we just wanted to kind of go ahead and run that one through.
Did I address your question?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Oh, go ahead.
How old is the IT equipment that we're talking about?
It would vary, without talking to him, I'm guessing probably anywhere from 3 to 4 years old. Because those servers take a beating, they're not gonna have a long life.
So obsolete.
They're getting to that point. And then they're also going to do some they're changing some drives, the way it's done. Basically, they're gonna my understanding, update it, and they're gonna make some changes. We are protected, and we do have backups now, but it needs eventual approval, it needs to be updated and approved. But the problem we've got is we don't have enough staff to do it.
I think there's some.
I'm fine with the motion, I just kind of wanted to get in my head what we're talking about more.
Yeah, I think, because I have a little bit of background in this field, I think there's some discussion about, I would argue that 3 or 4 years of equipment we don't need to replace every 3 or 4 years, but that's why we want to move it on to whole business, so.
No, I'm fine with that, I just
they're gonna
know how
make-
technology is,
Yeah.
and to make Mr. Becker's point.
And they're gonna make, some of it may be older than that, but the thing is, they also wanna make some changes as far as the way we back up stuff, because we have a large database ever increasing, so we need to change the way we're doing some of the drives. They've got some of the equipment in, but, at this point, they're just trying to keep the day-to-day operation, because we're 2 people down in the IT ones that are
Yeah.
there. So it's a very hard thing to progress with at this point.
Any other points, discussion? All right, go ahead and take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion approved unanimously.
Can I have one clarification? We're transferring the funds for the command vehicle, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
New appropriation.
From 171 ending in 570700.
Yeah, the one we were gonna
Yeah.
remove, we're just not gonna remove,
Yeah.
just transfer.
Tracking. Okay. So now moving into B3, 2022 purchase order carryovers from 2023.
These are just to give and we always send them to the commission too, these are all your appropriations the system automatically carries over. Under generally accepted accounting principles, and it's even in the GASB codification, if anybody wants me to show it, your beginning budget is adjusted for things you're legally required to pay, such as outstanding contracts and POs. Our system follows GAP, so it carries all these POs over. So your original budget will take this, and it'll be amended by this automatically, just giving you, and it was spent from last year. It's like if you had a PO out to purchase, let's say you had a PO out for architectural, for a construction project last year, we would show it as a budgetary expenditure. It rolls over into next year, and we actually expend it. This is just to give you guys information. But I've always asked in the past it to be approved and sent to the commission. That way, if anybody ever looks at the financials, say, why are all these adjustments there?
Can you just say it one more time, like a little bit, and I know we're moving super fast here, but just to make sure I understand. What's happening in these cases is that something has been, we have a purchase order out some point in the past, at the end of the year before, and then it's not been paid, and then this trues us up.
If you have a PO outstanding at the end of the year, what happens is that PO becomes a budgetary or expenditure in the next year, so your budget has to be increased by that much. So to follow GAP, the system, which is set up to follow GAP, which we're required to by law, automatically rolls that PO into your budget.
So another way to say this is that we're obligated for all these expenditures anyway.
Right.
So-
But this is just to give you
Short
guys,
answer
if
is
somebody
yes.
comes back and looks at it and goes, why is your stuff adjustment? I can explain, yes, this
Yeah,
is
I
GAP,
get
but
it.
I'd rather you guys know what's going on.
Is our fiscal year calendar year?
No, it's a June 30. By law, unless there's some compelling, and it's actually a state law, unless there's some compelling situation approved by the comptroller, all government entities are ending June 30, in June 30 in Tennessee.
Just a dumb question. Why do we just have all these account numbers, but we don't know what it is?
Well, that's what the system rolls from.
Yeah,
And if you want us
I
to
know,
give you an access to pull them, they're like, there's a system we could put, well, let's think if it rolls a description in that journal. It's actually, that's a copy of the journal that the system creates.
I mean, I know this line item and all that kind of stuff, but it's just a lot of money there to.
We'll see.
Don't
If
know
the-
where it's going.
Yeah.
We'll see if the system, because it does what that is the actual side of the journal entry that the system does for the POs. We'll see if there's some way we can attach the description.
That would be
It
really
would be
helpful.
nice, because I just
You
hate.
make a note, and we'll see what we can do on that. The system does it automatically, and we just drop it into Excel, make it as pretty as we can.
Similar to kind of the discussion we had offline, and I don't want to take up too much here, but some way to more easily group like ongoing expenditures and forward-looking expenditures, and I think that
Really helpful.
it would be super helpful, because we're kind of in this spot here where it's very difficult. We kind of have to go on a bit of faith, and we don't have a lot of time to act on it.
Well, what's happened here is you guys have, because your new commissions inherited a lot of projects that are ongoing, so that's why. Usually you'll be on the projects all the way down the road.
Yeah.
So it's
I
kind
mean, you got one here for $43 million, another for
That would be-
$31 million, $37 million, $35 million.
of school constructions.
Yeah. Scary stuff.
They're
Just a
school
bunch of
constructions,
numbers.
but we'll see if that journal has any kind of description, otherwise we can have a staff member to go and try to hunt them and type them all in. That's kind of what we do, is just drop it out of the journal for informational. It's required by GAP, so it really doesn't require approval, we just want to make sure you guys are aware of it. But we'll see if we can get more information on it in a reasonable manner.
So do we need a motion to approve this? Or is this just informational?
Well, it's for information, but I usually ask it to be approved and sent on the commission, the way they can look at it and they know what's going on.
So,
And I'll second.
all right. Any other discussion on this? All right, go ahead and put it to vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Motion approved unanimously. Okay, moving on to transfers. Payroll, A through F.
Can we go over them quickly?
Yes, please.
The first one is the Register of Deeds. She has a vacant full-time position, she's had trouble filling it up, so she just wants to transfer money from part-time to full-time. Would you like me to go through all of these, and then you can determine which ones you want, or if you want to group and approve, if they're, you want to go through them individually?
Yeah, I feel like we need to look at each of these
Okay.
individually.
That-
And I know
that's the first
we're over time, but that's the right thing to do.
All righty. The first one is just where she's going to transfer money from full-time to part-time because of a vacancy.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, go ahead and take a vote to approve. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
The second one is building and codes. They had a payout of a retiring employee. Your employees generally, based on the salary survey and scale, make a certain amount, so they don't have extra amounts in a line item, so they had to cover his payout for probably accrued vacation. Let's see which one said, accrued vacation payout.
What's that?
Down at the bottom.
Oh, gotcha. All right, motion, second, all right.
This is the same thing.
Oh, we need to vote on it. You moved too quick. All right, take a vote. Item 1B. All those in favor, please say aye. Any in the negative? Approved unanimously. Go ahead.
The next one's in the maintenance department. We had an employee that retired. The same thing, he had some vacation. I think he had some compensatory time, quite a bit of it. When you hire a maintenance man in, the market determines a particular amount, so there's usually not a lot of extra money, and these line items are very tight. So it's the same thing, asking to transfer money to pay out his comp time and vacation when he retired.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Any in the negative? Motion approved unanimously.
The next thing, the county clerk's office, like a lot of employers, they're having issues finding employees. They've actually got, they're at least short 2 employees right now. I think they're back to 2. They're asking to move money from their part-time to their overtime because employees are working overtime to cover for the vacancies.
Motion.
Second.
Is that ultimately gonna be, we're gonna run short in that line item?
They're moving, they'll have extra money in the full-time while it's empty. She moved it from part-time. She could have probably just as easy moved it from the salaries, but they have salary agreements, so they usually don't move those line items too much.
Okay, so the time and a half doesn't affect anything.
It will a little bit, but at the same time, you'll have employees that don't have health insurance, and that'll help offset a lot of
I've
that.
got a question here. How are we tracking hours?
Yeah,
Are we using?
We have 2. Right now, we're moving all county employees to the Kronos timekeeping system.
Okay.
We have the sheriff's department, EMS, most people in this building on it. We are anticipating in January to start moving the rest of the employees on it.
And I'm not saying this is happening, but we're going through this pretty quickly because we need to. And again, I'm not saying that this is happening, but this could, if we don't have good accountability here and visibility on what those hours are actually looking like, you kind of see where this could lead.
2 of those officers are on Kronos. This
Okay.
last one's not, but they'll eventually. The
All right.
private act says that all county offices will be on the timekeeping system and the ERP.
Okay.
We're in the process of doing that right now. We're moving through January. We're moving our old payroll software into the new ERP payroll software. As soon as January's here and gone, we're going to start back moving more employees into the Kronos system. We're taking billable staff.
In the future, is it possible, and again, just a note, can we get the Kronos report, anytime that something like this is asked, can we get a report that validates?
The ones that are on there, we can pull.
Yeah,
more
that's
information.
what I'm, just to match up when we're voting on something, that we see that hours are actually,
These, like the ones for the payout for the comp, and those usually come from finance, works with them from payroll to make sure that that's what they need.
All right.
We're looking at their lines, and several of these payrolls are produced by Cronus, like EMS, Sheriff, so we can get those quite readily. Some of the other ones are a little more difficult. They got manual timesheets, and that's what we're trying to get away from over the next probably year. Will be completely out.
All right, good. Thanks for that. Do we have a motion on the table?
Yeah.
All right, we'll move, go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor, item 1D to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any votes to the negative? Motion approved unanimously. 1E, please.
General Session sent me the letter. This is for all benefits and everything, the $6,000, and this one takes a little more explanation. What happens is we had a salary survey last year. It calculated where everybody should be for market. When we calculate those, we take your total compensation, including grants. We had an employee, right now, two things happened. An employee had a grant that disappeared, which was part of their salary, so we're short on that on the employee, what they should make. Well, at the same time, we had another employee that retired and one came in at a lower rate. So what they're asking is to take part of the retirement money, the exact same amount the employee was making in the grant, and move it over to his salary. If we were back doing the salary survey and he didn't have the grant, he would have received that locally anyway. So that's what they're asking to do, and that would be actually a recommended practice to fix that. Did that make sense, or do I need to?
I'm not totally sure I'm following.
Okay.
If I'm just being real honest, that one,
There's two
I'm
things
not
that
following,
happen.
went over my head.
Okay, we have an employee, for instance, he's got money that's paid out of the county general, and he ministers a couple of grants.
Okay.
When we did a salary survey last year based on years of service, education, different, of what employees should be making, and it was funded last
Yep.
year. When we did his calculation, like we do anything else, that's your total compensation, including money you receive from these grants. This grant, we anticipate,
okay.
has vanished on this employee, so he's gonna lose about a little over $5,000 of his pay. Well, what, versus coming back and asking the commission, say, hey, we're losing $5,000 worth of pay, they had an employee retire that makes less that came in, which is more than the 5,000, so they're asking to move
Okay.
$5,049 to his salary.
So I'm tracking this now, and I got a couple comments, like, is it, and again, I'm not trying to be harsh, but is it typical practice that we're putting grants and one-time funding toward people's salary?
This was a recurring to pay a salary. It was to pay him
Oh, it
for.
was?
It was to pay. It was one to pay a salary. This particular grant.
Okay,
was.
so it was recurring money to pay for
And then
recurring
it
salary.
vanished, and then now it's vanished. So they're asking to use.
But I mean, that kind of begs the question, if it.
How are we doing that?
Because it went away, right? I mean.
Well, if we would have, like last year when we were doing the salary survey, if we would have excluded all the grants from the calculation and say they came back and said you should be making 50 a year, if I had a $5,000 grant, I counted that toward their salary, so the county funded 45. I could have just as easily pulled that back and said we fund locally, and then they would have made 55. But the actual survey accounted for them doing the grant duties. So that's kind of where you in. Now we do not like to take temporary grants for large dollars, but these are usually smaller grants for like drug court. We have an employee totally put out on a grant right now.
All right.
Been that way for several years.
Question.
Go ahead.
What is the origin or authorization of these work surveys?
They were budgeted last year by the county commission to do the survey. They went through and worked with the departments that did the survey, and then the budget committee, and ultimately through the appropriations, they approved all of them last year.
How much did that cost?
I would have to go back. To do the survey or the cost of the
The
survey?
adjustments?
I would have to go back and look, Mr. I'd hate to tell you.
I would like to.
That is a good question.
It was discussed in budget, so we can go back and pull it out in minutes, but I can't recall off the top of my head. I can, because you have the cost of living and all that, I have to go back and look through which one.
I certainly want to be fair by our employees to get the caliber of people that we need, but in my opinion, in a lot of cases in this county lately, we've been passing out money like candy. We need to know amounts, who authorized it, and so forth. I'd like to have that info.
It was approved through the whole thing was presented to the budget committee, and they actually presented a recommended amount from the salary survey consultants, but that was not affordable, so the budget committee came back and put several limits in, such as an employee through the salary survey could receive more than 25% raise or a lower of 10%. If you were already at market, 10,000 or 25, the lower of the two. It also, if you were at market, you would at least receive a 4% raise. And then, I'm trying to think of some of the other limits in there. There was a couple limits. but
They also lowered.
Decreased the longevity.
Some of the, they had it where, let's say if you were here for 1 year through 2 years, you times it by 85% or, and then they would do it to the midpoint by that percentage. They also lowered the percentage that they times the midpoint by based off of your years to get a slightly lower number too.
So what happened, they came back and did a survey of local governments, businesses, and several. They came back and presented what the average market rate is. That is a 0 to 30-year employee. So the county came back and determined, their recommendation was that for an employee to be at market, they should not be making less than 85% of that or more than 120. The county came back and said, through adjustments, you can't be making more than 100% of that. So they cut that off because it was costly. And then they used the percentages down through the 85, but they decreased the percentage you got going back toward market. And then they also had if you were less than, I believe, less than 1 year, instead of being the 85, you ended up being 82.5.
Do we have a simple way to understand something super simple, and I could have missed it here, like by position, what that range is, and, kind of grouped? Is that available for the public?
They have they've been emailed, there was 17 ranges based on your 1 through 17. And if you were a 6, for instance, they would be a mid, a max.
Each physical position,
Yes.
it has, like, I am an EMS employee, I am a 7.
Yes.
And it has it mapped out that way?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's what was done last year. Because it was cost prohibitive, the consultants' recommendations were not followed. They were, a lower amount was used that was equally decreased across the board. Just put it that way.
No, this was done in the school system, so I'm familiar with what you're talking about. But once it was accomplished, it was done. Now, who authorizes, picks out an employee and has the authority to say, we want to examine this particular person or make this adjustment or whatever?
They worked with the departments to do that through HR.
Through HR?
Yeah, they worked with the individual departments through HR. They sent the data back to us, determining where their skill levels were at, and then gave us the ranges, and then we worked on years of service to determine.
So this is just ongoing?
The longevity pay should just be one time. There's been discussions of a step scale, but there's never been any approval from budget, county commissioner, or anybody for any step scales. I went to discuss how the salary survey worked for the calculation, and I was informed by several employees that there had been some discussions of step scale being in the county, but I'm not aware of any committees or anybody discussing step scales.
Okay.
The longevity should have been a one-time raise though.
Question, what was the range on this? Was it just similar counties our size, or was it all counties, or was it,
It was
other
counties
cities?
There were
other
cities and
states?
There are cities and counties, but I don't believe there's any other states. I actually have the documentation in my office. I can send that to you. I'll send it to you Wednesday. I'm out of town meeting all day tomorrow. But we'll send you the actual documentation. It told which cities they pulled, and it'll show you the ranges. And I've actually got one that shows, like for instance, it'll show what a EMS or a paramedic makes. It'll show what it won't be the individual employee, but it'll show what their number is and their range for that individual type of employee. It won't show all 1,000 employees, but it'll show each position, because each unique position.
We're well over time, and thank you for that. And I know we went, no, I started us down this rabbit hole, and I think it's an important one to get down, but go ahead.
But I think on this one is one that, when I count, because I'm the one that did the calculations, and that was a question I had from a lot of people, should we count the grants in or out of their salaries? Well, if you don't count them in where the survey landed you because of the responsibilities through the grant, you would actually have got the $5,000 last year is what he would have got.
Got it.
So this kind of kept him equalized, but now it's came back and needs to be dealt with if we're going to stay on any kind of rationale.
I guess, go ahead.
I don't know if I already made a motion. I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second.
And we have a motion and a second to approve item 1E. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative? Motion approves unanimously. Okay,
Item F, in the sheriff's department, they have court officers. Some of the court officers are certified as, the same as a law enforcement officer. They're wanting to make all their court officers certified because they feel it's a more secure courthouse. They've got extra money in their part-time funds. They want to move from part-time over to the security officers to certify all those officers.
So if we do this, you have a pot of money, and you've got, I don't know what their numbers are, you got 20 people that you're allotted, and each of these, let's say, paid X.
Right.
But they only have 15.
Right.
It's you're 5 short. You're at
Right.
75%. So you're moving money over to these 75. What happens if we full up?
The thing is they're asking for part-time here, so that would be, because the thing is, if it's a pot of money like part-time and he moves it over here, my recommendation in budget next year, you'd consider that part-time line item decreased. Now, I would be concerned if they were moving it from something like the deputy's line item or the jailers. If you do that, then the statute says you will not shrink the sheriff from his amount or numbers from the prior year, so I think you would actually have to deal with that. But this one's part-time fund, so it's a little different. It's usually just a pot, and you work a lot of different part-time employees out of it. And this pot's historically had extra money in it, and they've asked to utilize it to, I guess, certify those officers. But I would be very concerned if it was from a deputy line item or a jailer.
Because it's part-time, it's not loaded.
It's not
as
dated
heavy.
and detailed
Got
out.
it.
If you come
That's
back to our budget, and especially during the budget meetings, we'll bring you back, like each one of those line items, we'll have a worksheet that'll have every position, what they're making in there, and their changes from last year. It'll be put up on the screen, and that's something you guys will get the details. You haven't had a chance to see that, but all these are detailed out. Part-time's a little different, they're
All right.
buckets.
Motion.
We need a second.
Second.
All right, any more discussion on item 1F? Okay, go ahead and take a vote. All those to approve item 1F, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative? Motion approves unanimously. All right, moving on to C2.
These are the ones I discussed earlier. There's a policy for the finance director to move between non-salary line items, any amount. In the past, I've always asked the budget committee to approve it after the fact, even though the policy doesn't say that. The reason I ask that is if the budget committee has questions, I answer it, I can kind of get the feel, are they wanting me to be more stringent or less stringent on these transfers and send them to the committee. We can go down these and I can explain all of them, or I can just explain the big ones in the way we've done them in the past.
I don't see that page 90.
Yeah, I don't
that
either.
exists.
I'm 99, it's page.
99 is actually, that.
It should
Request
be,
for budget.
it should be page 99. The sheriff should be 98, that line got dropped down.
Okay.
So numbers, C2 is page 99.
Yes, sir.
So C3 is something else.
Then the the 98's the one I just talked about.
So, well, 99 looks,
It should be a gridded sheet like this. It should look like-
yes, that's 90. 99 is a gridded sheet like that.
Right, it should, 99.
It's that sheet that you're on.
This is,
Yeah,
yeah,
that one
and
up
this,
there.
and this is for
Yeah, there
ARPA
was
funds,
an
or this is
error on the
interbudgetary?
one. That was
You're on
Okay.
on the front of the agenda. And
All right, got it.
Yeah, item C3 is mismarked.
what it looks like when they got
Got
to the
it.
edge of the page, it dropped down one of them and knocked them all off on that last page.
Okay.
And I went through that today to see it, but, let me go through the large ones. The first one, if you look, there's an $83,000 transfer, and what that is, they've got a hazard mitigation grant and then some local funds. What happens with a lot of your construction or things such as this, we'll put all the money in building construction or materials. If the overall project is approved, then I'll move it to the appropriate line item. The budget through the thing approved the hazard mitigation grant and approved the hazard mitigation. This is the cost of moving the old post office when they demo all the other stuff that's in the flood area.
That was gonna be my question. First time I've heard of this, or remember hearing of it, so the county buildings, so the Cottontown Community Center demolition, post office relocation,
Yes.
so what? So you're saying this is in a flood zone, and so they're just taking the old historic post office and
They're moving it out before it has to be demoed, they're trying to save it.
So I guess obviously, but when it says, is that being used as a community center right now? Is that-
No, I think it's just the little post office building's what they're moving because it's 18, isn't that what was being moved?
Yeah.
So-
Because it's over in a floodplain that has to be where the county through a grant bought the property, and the agreement is that nothing on that property can stay there. It's all gonna be, because it's in a floodplain, where it's all gonna be demoed out, including that if it's not moved.
So, but you're talking about the county currently owns the post office, right? Or no?
We have to own it, yes, we own it when we got it through the grant. Because that was my question when they sent up.
I'd always thought we'd owned that, but that was not correct.
No, that was bought through the grant, wasn't it? Wasn't that the floodplain? Yeah, bought back, through the hazard
Okay.
mitigation. But when we bought it through the hazard mitigation federal money, everything in there has to come off and be demolished, including those houses, and people were paying.
Sure, I remember that happening next to Pope John Paul in Hendersonville,
Right.
they did the same thing. So the Cottontown Community Center, what is that then?
Well, that's what they're calling it, community center / demo old post office.
So,
Okay, so they're calling the post office the Cottontown Community Center.
I think the post office is small, but I think that was the demo, was that the demo or the move?
I'm reading the post office being relocated and the community center
It's
being.
two
demoed.
different buildings. The old Cottontown Community Center is basically condemned. So that's what they're removing because you can't restore it.
From that property. and moving
From
the
that
post office.
property.
Okay.
They're moving the post office over to higher ground.
Thank you.
Demo / yeah, I'm sorry, I wasn't clear on
Okay,
that.
yeah. that's a good-
And this, all these are is line item transfers, the overall project was approved. When they put the money, they put money because you don't know the breakdown under things such as construction material. So if you go down to the bottom, there's two more, they're ARPA. And if you look, you're moving from a 706, which is a construction, down to an architect. Anytime we do a estimate in the past, we put it all under construction, then we break the architect through transfers. And that's something we do during the month through projects that are already approved. So these are already transferred and going through, but this is the way it's been done for the last, I don't know, several years. And that was my question earlier, how we want to follow the resolution where it gives me authority to move these under your authority, or is this the way you want to continue on, or? That's why we always ask the committee to approve these and make sure they're on the same.
yeah, we'd need a motion to approve it. I mean, my thought is that we want this level of visibility. I know it's kind of painful today, but.
Oh, we always give you the visibility, but we move it during the month, what I'm saying, that's the big thing. That's what we've always done to keep things running, that's why let's make sure you guys are they understand what I'm saying. Whereas they've approved for, the finance director to move unlimited amount of non-salary line items during the month. And the way I usually look at those, if it's in your budget, under your general, what your office should be doing, and it's something that makes sense, we always transfer those. If it's a big project and they've approved the overall project, and it's just a breakdown between architects and construction, because it was all put together because you didn't have the breakdown, then I moved those. That's why you have these large transfers during the month. I'm making sure that everybody understands why these are happening. They're not, if the project was not approved, then I do not do these transfers. That's just like on the, line item 3, there's a discussion about the 1.5 million for ARPA. And there's
Yeah.
a discussion if you want to use it, but I did not transfer that because it was never approved by the commission for that project.
Yeah.
It was approved for
We've already
elections.
transferred these.
Yes, these are ones because the projects are approved.
Okay, so do we even need a vote?
I just, well, we don't really need to, but I've always asked the committee to do
motion.
in the past.
Okay. We have a motion, and a second for item, C2. Any discussion on this? Any further discussion? Any other questions?
Just for clarity, what you're asking for is to maintain the flexibility that you need to keep things moving.
But I want to make sure that the committee, because the policy doesn't even require approval, but I want to make sure the committee
Right,
is
I
agreeing with the
understand that.
transfers we're making and.
But we're
because
agreeing to your
Right.
flexibility.
And if at some point you're saying we need to kind of be, look at these a little closer, it would be better to do that than we have the flexibility removed and have operational issues.
So is this a policy from the 2012 Financial Management Act?
It's from a resolution from the county commission and budget committee. It's part of the purchasing policy that was adopted. There was I don't know, it's been a couple years back.
So just to be clear, you'll make the transfers, but you'll put it in front of us, and then we'll make a motion to approve.
Right, and if you, they technically don't require the approval, so if there's concerns about them, then that's during the month, I need to look at them maybe a little differently if you have concerns. The way I look at it, if they've got a project approved, and for instance, they've stuck it all under construction because they don't know the amount of architecture when the project was approved, then I'll move those funds, that's just like these. These on the hazard mitigation, it was all approved as a project by the county commission. Under the county buildings, they always put all their stuff under building materials. I wouldn't let them use building materials to move this. I told them it had to be other construction because we're moving something. So I made them transfer the line, but that project was approved, so I went ahead and did
Got
it.
it.
But I don't come back and if it's like, a good example is the EMS director a minute ago.
Yep.
I ask you to remove the appropriation. By the
Yep.
policy, I can move that over for him to buy the vehicles, but it was approved to build an EMS station,
Yep.
not vehicles, so I wouldn't let him do it.
Yep.
That's kind of the rationale I'm using, and that's why I always ask the committee to approve it afterward to make sure we're still all on the same page. If something wants to be changed, they just need to let me know.
So this page was one that bothered Mo the
This
most.
one?
This page. I want to see the resolution that we passed. That would be my request. Because I've seen a lot of stuff transferred that questionable and just, in my opinion, at a lot of times done. There's just something that we had talked about. I guess just this is one of those pages where, in my opinion, things slip by. I appreciate you bringing this forward, but I guess that's what I was asking, what the policy was as far as there's a resolution for authorizing this.
It's part of the purchasing policy that was approved, and I have to get the date. But we'll get the resolution for the purchasing policy
I
and
would
the
just love
actual,
to review that.
and the actual excerpt from the purchasing policy is actually up under,
So,
4D is actually the excerpt is.
so we have a motion on the table. If it passes, it passes. If it doesn't pass, I mean, is it possible that we can move this to old business? and
You
consider-
can, or I mean, if you look at the policy, and we'll send it to Commissioner Mansfield, it says just for me to move it in every, it says to retain approval. But I always do that to make sure we stay on the same page of what we're doing. Is this what I'm doing?
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I've done that for the whole time.
All right. So we have a motion on the table. Any change to the motion? Okay. All to approve C2, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative?
I'm going to say no.
We have, I'm gonna say no as well. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, motion approved. All right. Item number C3, moving ARPA funds for the election machines, so that's not page 99. This
Is
is,
it on here? I don't see it.
It's a discussion point because it was not actually, the bid was not received in time to get the numbers, but I have the numbers with me.
yeah, we've discussed this.
Got the total.
Is this that $1.5 million?
I think it's something that's that.
Is this, point of information, can we defer this one? Is there a time limit?
This one's kind of got, it needs to be probably dealt with today one way or the other, and I'll kind of give you the details.
All right.
The budget had 3.4 million funded for a new maintenance facility. And if you talk to the former mayor, current mayor, any of them, there's a lot of stuff that's being worked on in the basement. It really needs to be moved to a maintenance facility, such as welding, a lot of issues. The actual bids came back now at the base bid for the lowest one's 3.9 million, 221 for the architectural, about $200,000 for the stuff needed like shelving and a little contingency puts you at 4.4, so you're about $1 million short. The question is, at this point, if you don't construct it, then we're gonna need to move the architectural, and we've already paid 182 on this one. We're gonna need to move it over to general fund, or kind of proceed on or change the scope. If you wanna stay in the same scope, it takes about $1 million, and you have 1.5 million currently under ARPA that's put out for election machines. Well, since then, there's been state money and HAVA money that's become available, so they actually have a $1.5 million PO, or 1 point something, it's not quite 5, but enough to buy all their election machines already out without this fund. So the fund's no longer needed for election machines, so the question is, do you want to utilize those funds to construct the maintenance facility?
Well, I think I would maybe argue that there's a couple questions here. We're sunk at, what was the cost, 180?
182's been spent, there's a PO for about 221.
Okay, so we're obligated up to about 400,000 then.
Well, no, the 221 or the 182, the 221.
Oh,
is the
okay,
total.
okay, so.
Somewhere between 182.
180, all right, so we're obligated up to 220,000.
Right.
So if we were to hypothetically go back and try to rescope it, we're still paying that.
The 182, yes, you're probably gonna have to pay some, amend the PO and rechange the design to completely change it.
That would be if we were gonna try to, so that's, oh, go ahead.
You're gonna pay money to redesign it.
So I apologize, I'm not understanding what we're discussing, you're
Okay.
voting on.
In your original budget, there's $3.4 million that was appropriated for an ARPA, from the American, the ARPA funds.
Mhm.
It is, it was to construct a maintenance facility. The bid, the lowest bid, and it's been bid twice now.
How was that? Let me rephrase. How much money are we asking to move from the election machines to this?
$1 million to fund it.
$1 million, okay.
If you're gonna fund it in its current scope, we need about $1 million.
So we don't need election machines?
They've got the election machines funded by state funds and,
That's
HAVA
true.
funds.
Ms. Ashley, she's not gonna come back to us and ask us for any
Understanding
money.
it went through HAVA and, state, we've actually got our PO out, and, there's a resolution written that they would be covered by state funds and or HAVA.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
So, I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
This, I mean, again, one of those things, I've never seen this before discussed in committee, I have no idea what this is. So other than just hearing it now, so I'm not in favor of doing anything on this right now.
Yeah, that's a good point, and which is why I kind of made the comment I made earlier. Like, so we're talking about a maintenance facility. Is that maintenance facility, has money already been, other than the 180 to 220, is that all that we're obligated to?
Yep.
And then,
Yep.
You know how many square feet this place is?
I think it was 9,000, is it?
And it's
17,000, I'm sorry. I was-
17 and it's 3.9 million?
It is $3,947,000 just for the construction cost.
We bid it out twice.
We have bid it twice now at this point. And the bid's only good for 21 days. That's from the recommendation of your architect, because he says that the longer you drag it out, the more there'll be a cushion for possible increases in price.
It's $232 a foot for an industrial building. That's hard to believe.
is there any other option here for purchasing of a building? I mean, was there anything, I'm asking, was there any other, was it just, we're going to build a building, or were there any other options considered, maybe purchasing a building?
So I'm not.
I mean,
There was no
I just
discussion.
received the request for
No
the,
discussion.
I just received the
First
request for the ARPA funding, and it was a budget request during the budget.
And this is out of, so, and I want to be.
There was some discussion at the very end of the budget committee.
So I want to make sure that there's, because you and I have had this discussion, and I don't know that everybody here has, so there's two kind of pieces of ARPA funding, right? You've got 10 million that you can spend toward general infrastructure, et cetera. You got 27.5 million.
210.1, yeah.
Which is something to that effect, that have certain parameters around it.
Mhm.
This is coming out of the 10 million.
Yes.
Okay, so, and this is the largest allocation that's coming out of that 10 million, I
Yes.
think.
Yes, it is.
From our previous discussion.
Yes.
So, I'm gonna say something here. I've been a government contractor, and I kind of know how this works. You see money, kind of, to use it, off-color term, or kind of falling from the sky, and people are like gonna go and collect the money. And I feel like what really need, I'm not saying we don't need a maintenance facility, but just because there's money out there, there's a lot of different infrastructure projects that could certainly compete for this. Is this, regardless of whether the money is free or not, because I don't think there's any such thing, shouldn't we be asking, is this the most cost-effective way to accomplish the task, and the task being, we need a new maintenance facility?
That might be more of a general ops question.
So, I mean, I think we need to pass this back to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we do have a motion on the table. I don't know that it
I'd like
has
to amend that motion to defer this to general ops.
One other question, what agency is using this maintenance building? What agency is using this maintenance building?
The county maintenance, that we have a maintenance department for all the county buildings.
It would also be for emergency services, it would be all the vehicle maintenance for emergency service and all the county.
The general maintenance.
Yeah, one half of
Vehicle
the,
maintenance, building maintenance,
Yeah.
all in one.
fabrication.
Yeah.
Think so, because they've got welding, what, they got some equipment out here listed. Lifts and tools, yep, it's all this stuff to equip it to.
Mr. Mayor, I think that.
well, just, this was before my administration, but the way the building is structured, half of it is for building maintenance. We'll also include woodworking and painting and electrical, whatever we need on half of it. The other half will be for vehicle maintenance. Right now, we ship everything out for vehicle maintenance, with exception of some VMS, but we'll be able to do all that in-house and save money there.
Well, you've got the building, but if you're shipping things out, that's also FTEs, right? So would we need to hire new people, just because you buy a new building?
Well, we've got one mechanic already with I believe EMA or two. We've got two already, so this will give them a facility to be more efficient in. And then we can do the mundane things like change oil, which is like $70 a pop now for trucks.
So we're not looking at any heavy, motor exchanges?
No, I don't think we'd be
This is
looking like
just
new
general
transmissions and, no.
Lube stuff, and that's
Just
it?
the
Change
general
tires?
maintenance, general maintenance of vehicles. That's what would be done on that side. And then the maintenance part. The problem that we have, and I'm not here to debate the merits of either side, but we do have a significant issue with OSHA violations under us right now.
I'm sure you do,
And-
if you're welding down in the
And to
basement.
be quite honest, we do, we do have to do something, and,
Some point.
this was an opportunity, there were funds available, and this was an opportunity to seize those funds and do this move rather than try to do a bond issue. And, because it has to be done.
I have no doubt it has to be done, just $232 a square foot is
Yeah.
a lot of money. for
Yeah,
industrial
we
building.
bid it out twice, and the second bid came up higher, that's why we're having the discussion now. I venture a guess, if we wait 21 days, we bid it out again, it'll come back higher.
Where is this building? Where's the proposed site?
It's gonna be out on the land at the ECC.
Okay.
So it's land that's
Airport.
already on.
Industrial.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Can I make a comment? And I think, not answer your question, because of the cost, I think it's more than just the shell and the foundation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, but I think there's lift posts and stuff to get the vehicles in the air, to do some of that as well, which would add considerably.
Yeah, those things are usually about $2,000.
Yeah,
a
about
piece.
2,500 a lift, something like that.
For a 10-ton ambulance.
Well, that's true, we're just talking about.
That's in the 4 million total, but not in the
Yeah.
construction.
But
4.4 total. Lifts would be included in the 3.
they would or would not be?
Would not.
So the lifts aren't even included in this?
No, the
Any equipment
220 would
in that?
include the lifts, because we're just talking about constructing the full
So
building.
this is just the building?
The lift is
It's those gold leaf
In the 4.4,
girders
but not in the
I'm worried
3.9, yeah. It's the 220,000 extra, the 3.947 is the building.
Well, there's a lot going on here, let me try to sum this up. It's kind of a probability thing. We have a need, we know we've got a need. If we can send it back, and there's a probability that we might be able to find something cheaper, just because we'll spend a little more time looking at it. But there's also a very high probability if that body comes back and can't find another building or can't de-scope it significantly, that if we go to rebid it, it's gonna go up. So, did I accurately, so it's a balance of risk here.
And if I understood Mr. Long correctly, he said the bid is good for 21 days, so by the time we meet again.
So we have to we're going to make a decision here, one way or the other, that's gonna move the needle up or down, and it's kind of educated guess about which way this is gonna go. All right, is there?
So I made the motion, it didn't get a second yet, but we had all that discussion, which we shouldn't have yet, but, because we didn't have a second, so I don't know if it's gonna get a second or not. But I made the motion, I'll repeat my motion to approve this.
I'll second it.
All right.
And I will tell you that a lot of the build out will be done internally, so it won't be like we hire people to build out stuff, to save costs.
Motion to approve Mr. Becker, send back to Janobs.
This is this is the motion.
This is the motion to
Approve.
approve it.
There was
And
a
then there's
Janobs.
another one, his motion was up, so we have to take this one first, unless you want to remove it.
No, that's my motion.
And then we can take another motion.
What is the expected timeline to get this building completed?
And that's Ms. Kim.
we allocated a year, 1 year, because there is a lead time for the prefab building.
So we got a 12-month risk.
Is this a steel building with sheet metal walls?
It does have some drywall, but yes, it is a prefab building.
What about HVAC? all, I mean,
Yes,
It's
it's
wired.
included HVAC.
And I didn't quite understand if you said the lifts are or are not included for the entire.
They're in the 4.4 million that needs an additional million, yes. The 3.947 does not, but there's 200,000 that says equipment, lift, and other tools. In the total 4.4, it would include the lift, but the 3.947 million does not.
That's
include-
just the shell.
That's the building, you know, sheet rocks, air.
You need another $500,000 to equip the building.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does have a.
220,000 equipment.
With shelving, lifts, and.
Yeah.
It's got a brick facade on the front, because I think the city.
Is that not included in the $1 million?
Which one? The million includes all that.
Yeah, that covers everything.
The 4.4 covers everything, but the
Yeah,
394.
so the million that we're talking about would cover
That
everything.
covers everything.
It covers everything, including the shelving, but to answer the question, 3.947 does not include the shelving. It's another number down there.
But what would be, so the million is gonna cover the lifts and everything too? Okay, that was my understanding, so.
Yes, sir.
So
It covers
yes.
everything, that does. Just trying to make sure you're on the right page.
3.9 million, is that what you're saying?
3.95.
Total, 3.95 total?
And then the extra 200 and.
220, and then you've got the architectural fee, so it brings you a total around $4.4 million to get into the building, and you've got 3.4, so you need another million to proceed on.
But to be clear, this motion is to move funding from purchase of election machines, voting machines, to this project.
Yes, it
And
was-
all of it's out of ARPA. Just making sure we're on what we're voting on here.
All of it's out of order.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. This is good discussion. I don't want to kill it, but any other discussion here? All right, we'll take a vote. This one, may want to get hands raised. All those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2. All those to the negative, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 abstaining.
I thought you seconded
Yeah,
it.
Mr. Cho, he seconded it,
Yeah, I thought you did.
but he voted against it. He seconded, so we can.
You can
vote.
second it.
I seconded, so we can vote.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to vote here for a second.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so, Mr. Mansfield, I think you had another motion that you wanted to.
No, I mean, I was gonna defer this to General Ops for discussion, but
So,
I mean, I don't know.
do you want to make that motion? We need to do something with it.
I would,
I agree, I mean,
I
we've
move
got
that
the
we
funds here, but
defer
it just
this to
needs some
general
more
ops.
discussion as to what we
Yeah,
want to
and
do.
so,
I mean,
because,
it's
Commissioner
just-
Klein is
We don't even
chairman of
have
general
the
ops.
thing.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll
look
look
at
at it hard.
That's what kind of bothers me, we're voting on something that's kind of nebulous.
And, Commissioner, we don't necessarily have to have a motion to do that. Commissioner Klein can just ask for that to be on the agenda when we schedule his meeting.
Yeah. Okay,
You guys could just put it under old business or just kill it completely.
we'll put it under old business
You
here.
already know general ops, so we'll
Yep.
get back.
Well, I mean, I hope we didn't cost us more money.
Yeah, no, I want to build it, but they need it.
Okay,
Tax refund?
moving to tax refunds.
So move. Second.
And, motion for 1 or 1 through 4 all in one.
I move to group and approve if we can.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and, any discussion on this? All right, go ahead and, take a vote. All who approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any in the negative? All right, motion
Adjourn.
And, any votes? Say aye.
Aye.
All right, adjourned.
All opposed, stay. Not about to consider any switch commission.
Well, that took longer than.
Well,
I mean, that's what happens when you
For
got.
financial management. They're big on financial management.
Are they meeting?
Oh, they were meeting.
Yeah.
We'll clear the table for financial management.
We may, look, we may have very well cost us more money there. We may have very well cost us more money there.
What now?
You didn't want to.
I just think, you know.
They're gonna have maintenance anyway.